Traveling to Consciousness, exploring spiritual journeys to find answers in uncertainty.
What is up, conscious monkeys? Welcome back to another episode of Traveling to Consciousness. As always, I'm your host, Clayton Cuteri, and not as always, we have an amazing, a groundbreaking podcast today. Because on August 29th, that's today, we have now hit the 3-year mark of Traveling to Consciousness. A feat that I really can't put into words. The amount of things that have changed in the last 3 years have been insane in my opinion. Just the amount of, and as I say this humbly, the amount of knowledge I feel like that I have gained has been absolutely absurd. And with that being said, I do want to point out that in this podcast, I'm going to be going over my top 3 lessons from the first 3 years of this podcast. And it was difficult to pack these all into only 3 lessons. But I felt like that these 3 truly embodied multiple different aspects of spirituality. I felt like they kind of embodied things that maybe the average spiritual content creator doesn't talk about, or that the spirituality community as a whole tends to shy away from. And I think that they're things that at a deeper level we really need to embrace and embody if we want to truly create the world that we all talk about, that we want to have, that we want to explore, that we want to manifest, if you will. So 3 years. Wow, it's crazy. So we're moving into the 4th year. The first thing I do want to point out there before we jump into the top 3 is I feel like I have to apologize to you guys. I dropped the ball this year. So the very first year, year 1 ended on episode 100. Year 2 was on episode 200. And unfortunately, year 3 is episode 281. So I messed up on that, guys. I did not plan for that to happen. Maybe I have to work overtime this next year to crank out a few more. But it wasn't for nothing. A lot of it was a lot of traveling this year. A lot more coming up. Not that it's an excuse, but it's definitely something that I would like to acknowledge, I guess. But without further delay, let's jump into the top 3 lessons that I've learned from this year. And I guess an honorable mention is that I need to do more. I was 19 episodes short this year. All right, so coming in at number 3. If you don't enjoy now, you won't enjoy then. So the very first experience that I had with this is I was realizing that a lot of very wealthy people, very rich people, were talking about how, billionaires, I'm saying, even billionaires, I'm sure you can look up videos of this, saying how they'd rather be broke in 20 than be where they are with billions of dollars. And it really struck me as odd. I mean, of course, I was 20 at the time when I would hear things like this, and it struck me as odd. Like, oh, of course I'd rather be there. But what is not being articulated? And I don't think that the people who say this are even consciously aware that this is what is truly needs to be articulated. Is that they weren't enjoying when they were 20. They weren't enjoying where they were when they were 20. And I've gotten more information about this, and it simply comes down to this, is that you have to enjoy now if you want to enjoy then. Because I'm sure, as we've talked about millions of times, the book The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, you truly have to enjoy this present moment because it is the only thing that exists. The mind will create the illusion of, well, it's nice, but I don't have $1 million. Well, it's nice, but my significant other is annoying. Well, it's nice, but I don't know what I want to do with the rest of my life. And I think that so many rich and wealthy people, and everyone, quite frankly, spends all their time projecting their mind into the future or past. And when you do this, you create a divide within yourself. Because I think rich people probably become rich and then realize like, oh, I should have been focusing on the present moment the entire time. Of course, you need a plan. Don't get me wrong. But I think what I'm trying to say is just that you have to enjoy now, as simply put. Because you could even sit here and think about being rich. Think about being super wealthy. And what you'll notice is that if you imagine that life long enough, you'll notice that different little problems will start to kick in your mind. Your mind will start creating new problems. Okay, I have the $1 million. Great, life should be perfect. Well, now I want 2 million. Now I want 1 billion. Now I want this house. Now I want that house. Now I want a yacht. Now I want this and that and this and that. And your brain finds a way to keep creating more and more things that you desire. And so I think this is either a byproduct of just being human. Maybe it's some sort of supernatural gift that humans have. But the art of truly being at peace and truly loving the present moment is what, in a way, sets you free. And in that present moment, you can create a plan to move forward, to get those things that you desire. But you have to enjoy each step in the process. Otherwise, once you get those things, it'll be even more empty than before, because you thought this thing was going to fill that hole. So hopefully that makes sense, because I'm moving on to number 2. So number 2 lesson of the first 3 years of the podcast: be humble, ask questions. I find that this idea, just always being humble, always taking this mindset of like not knowing into almost every situation, is extraordinarily beneficial. First of all, it essentially sacrifices your ego, because if you come from a place of not knowing, then you don't have to be the person who knows it all. And by being humble, you're able to ask questions. And I've seen this in my relationships in every single facet. Act like you don't know and ask a question. Instead of assuming, instead of making a wild prediction that isn't even based in reality, it's just your mind creating the illusion. And these other people who are involved in said situation may not have even thought of it themselves. What you can do is be humble and ask a question. The most powerful time is whenever you're in tension, whenever you think so-and-so said something to make you angry or to get back at you or to do X or to do Y. I've used it for almost through this podcast at least. I do that personally. But through this podcast, it's almost been more of like a esoteric exploration. Well, how does this line up with that? How does this exist with this? Taking that place of not knowing in a weird way gives you and frees you from control. It frees you from suffering. And to me, it seems like it's almost the only way that you'll learn anything. Because the opposite is to just be egotistical and never ask anyone questions and be in your rut, going the same direction, not learning anything. And I find that the more humble you are, the more questions you can ask, the more the world will open up to you. Because I don't know that anyone has ever truly gotten to the knowledge of everything. The omnipotent spirit or God or nature. I suppose in a way they know. And we have a piece of that in us, but if you don't know everything, then you haven't fully embodied that spirit. And maybe that's a little bit esoteric, but I feel like it... And I feel like that maybe isn't the best example, right? The better example, let me think of it this way, is almost like it's a circle. You can learn from everyone and everything. For example, right? I've learned things from my guru. I've passed them on to some of the people who are studying under me and taught them. But even in the way I teach them, I still learn something. I learn something about them. I learn better ways to explain information. I learn when people don't understand, they do understand, how they didn't understand. And so even when you're teaching people, you can still learn. But the key is you have to be open to it. You have to be willing to test and sample, see what you might know or you don't know. So for a quick recap, number 3, if you don't enjoy now, you won't enjoy then. And number 2, be humble, ask questions. Which brings us to number 1. The number 1 lesson of my last 3 years. And it's honestly a lesson that I didn't really fully embody or understand until maybe 7 months ago. And that is that you have to do something. And this might be one of the biggest programs or illusions that is running within the spiritual community. Is that it seems on the physical layer that spiritual people are waiting for other people to do something about it. It seems to me that this programming of, well, money is not for me, money's for other people, politics isn't for me, it's for other people. These solutions, the power, if you will, the power of our world should be in the hands of spiritual people. And I don't say forget about me for a second. Forget about me. I truly feel as though spiritual people are ones that think about the next generation. The ones who are concerned about the future and future generations. Because those are our kids, our grandkids. And we have to take care of this planet, otherwise we won't have a planet to give them. And it seems to me that a lot of people, again, spiritual community, I am calling you out, just want to throw their hands up, say that it's someone else's problem, it's not my fight, I'm just going to enjoy my life. I've even met spiritual people who talk about how money isn't important, money means nothing, but then if they pay for something, they want me to pay them back immediately, or they'll track it and be down to the cent. And it creates this confusion within the mind, within everyone's mind in that situation. Anyone who has that mindset, money is not important. And I'm sure you could even go back along my podcast, and I probably said it at some point in time, oh, money doesn't matter. But the trick is that money is important to survive, but it's not the ultimate. It's not the supreme. It's not our God. Even though society would have us believe and feel that way about it. So it is important, don't get me wrong. And this is where it comes back to power. Is that there are 2 different types of power. And I could probably do a whole podcast just on the idea of power. And now that I'm saying it out loud, I probably will. One is political power and one is monetary. So political power, the example would be COVID. Now, whether or not you agree with the job, whether you agree with it, whether you agree with the lockdowns or not, it's irrelevant. What's important is to realize is that a select group of people decided that everyone was going to stay inside for however long it ended up being. They said it was going to be 2 weeks. Anyone with eyes knew it wasn't going to only be 2 weeks. It ended up being 6 months, I think, at minimum. Depends on where you lived. But the point is that a select group of people within our country and across the world decided that we were going to completely shut down everything. That's power. And in the hands of the wrong people, that's dangerous power to give. So this is why one level of why spiritual people need power. Another is monetary. We need spiritual people to have money. Because look, the perfect example of money, again, I don't know why, but he's also a controversial, and I do know why. Didn't mean to say it like that. I understand why he's controversial. But a good example would be Elon Musk, right? Tremendous amount of wealth. His mission is to put people on Mars. That's like his one MO in life right now, right? And he needs money to do that. He's so efficiently using his money that he's creating a town in Texas called Starbase. to shoot off their star ship. And they're trying to get people to move there. Right now it's difficult because no one wants to live there. But they're essentially creating an entire town. That's money. That's power with money. So with all this to say, spiritual people need power. In order to get power, you have to do something. You can't just sit around and meditate, waiting for the world to change. It won't happen. It's never happened. I mean, you're physically doing something, right? To get money, to get money. And then the question is what are you going to do with that money? Are you just going to accumulate? You're going to spend it on stuff that doesn't bring back a future? Maybe you're spending it on kids. I think that's probably great. But my point is that more ideas in the spiritual community need that sense of, they need that sense of direction when it comes to power. The spiritual community needs power. And again, forget about me. Take me out of the equation. Don't give me any power. I don't care. I'm just saying that the spiritual people need it. Because even if you gave it all to me, there's no chance that I'm going to be the most. If you give all the power to me, there's no chance that how do I articulate this? There's no chance that I would be able to do it alone. No chance. And if you told me I had to do it alone, that would create such an ego burst, if you will. So it can't just be me. So see this as a calling to everyone who listens to this podcast, who identifies as being spiritual, that you have to do something. Get power, monetary power, political power, influence, influential power. Because that is the only way that we will be able to change this world. For the good, for the better, to stop the nuclear wars. We have to move that way. We have to move that direction. Otherwise, what's the point? If there's no future generation, then why bother with anything? Maybe it is better to go meditate on a mountain. So with all that being said, as a quick recap, to get a little too dramatic for you guys, as a quick recap, top 3 lessons. Number 3, if you don't enjoy now, you won't enjoy then. Number 2, be humble, ask questions. And number one, you have to do something. You have to do something. So those are my lessons. That's my 3 years in review. The top 3 lessons. Hopefully we can get back up to 400 for next year. I'll have to probably work a little bit overtime if I'm going to pull off an extra. I'll probably have to release multiple per week. We'll see how that goes. No promises on that one. So with that being said, I really appreciate you guys being here for year number 3, heading into the 4th year, and things are just getting started. It feels like every year I'm a completely different person for the better. So I am very, very excited to see what happens in the next year. And also, I don't know if I'm going to be able to announce this on Monday, but I have a big announcement coming soon. Follow me on Instagram. I know I'll be posting about it there at Clayton Cuteri. You can follow me on X as well and TikTok, same handle. I will be posting about that there. So if you don't hear it on here, you'll hear it on there. And if you don't hear it at any place, then you'll definitely hear it whenever I tell you about it in the 6th dimension.